Hello and welcome to expense video number 3. Depending on your business or your style of accounting, you might only enter your receipts at the end of a week, or you might enter them at the end of a month, for example. So let's say that you're entering all your receipts at the end of a month. You might end up with a pile of 13 fuel and oil expenses. You don't have to put your entries in date order. If you just enter them in, just grab a bundle and start entering them in, EasyAs will put the information in date order for you. The next time you come back in the screen, you will find everything's in date order. And I'll prove that to you. If I just enter something in here on the 2nd of January, I'm going to use FPOS because that'll stand out for you then. And I'm going to use vehicle maintenance. I'm just going to put $100 and I'll show you. If I exit this screen and come back in, it doesn't exist down here anymore. Where is it? Or it doesn't exist on my screen at all because I've got that. I've used auto dates, and I suggest you watch the auto date video. This is a really unique feature. It allows me to not see information I don't want to see when I'm on the screen. So in this example, I don't want to see anything on the screen before June because otherwise I'd end up with hundreds of entries on my screen. So I've elected not to see these transactions after June. If I go back here, I turn this off, I now see all the entries on the screen. And if we have a look here, this is it here. That's that entry I just entered. And it's so easy as to put it in date order for you. Now, let's have a look at something. At the top of these columns, we have headings. That's pretty natural. What EasyAs allows you to do is you can sort your columns. If you're looking for some information or you're looking for a particular entry, apart from using these refinement tools up here, you can actually group information together when you want to have a quick look on the screen. So this allows you to put information in date order, ascending order or descending order. If I click on the word date, the information is now sorted in descending order. If I click on that little line above the date, or just pick on a region above the date, I'm now in ascending order. Payment method. If I click on the bottom one, it's put it in descending order, grouped. Okay, E comes after C, so it's in descending order in their groups. Click underneath it, it groups them in. So I click up top of it, it groups it in ascending order. So I think there's basic information there. Here it's the same thing. You can sort your information. I think, yes, it works on the totals columns as well. Does it work on this? It works on all these columns. So you can put things in ascending and descending order, and it works here as well. Oh, I think it works here as well. So you see a lot of these columns, you can group stuff and group information together for ease of reference, ease of sorting, looking at your screens, looking for information. Nice and simple. What's another unique little feature of EasyAs? I'm just going to turn this facility back on for a minute. Another neat little trick that EasyAs performs is this. If we have a look at the date column, in most screens, apart from the expense screens and the income screens, if you double click on a date column, double click in this box, it will present to you today's date in that box. Automatically puts it in there. It's great on the invoice screen if you're doing up your invoice for the day. Just double click on that and move on to the next thing. You don't have to select your date. But naturally, if you're in the screen here, you've got your little date box comes up here. You can click this and select the date from here as well. In this case, it diverted to January, and I'll explain that in a minute. So let's say that today's date happened to be, well, that's today's date there, the 17th of July. So I click that there, and it's put the 17th of July in there. And then I can move on to the next column. Now, EasyAs remembered that a minute ago, when I double-clicked on this, it came up and said 22nd of January. Now it's changed, and it's given me the 17th of July. Why? Because I selected a new date from this box. What happens is this. EasyAs has a tool on the expense screen that allows you to remember the last date you previously used. So if you have a whole handful of receipts, say fuel receipts for example, you could put them in quick order if you wanted to. So as you double click on the date box, it presents to you the date of the last entry you previously entered. That's how the expense date box works. So what that allows you to do is, some individuals, you might be entering your expenses in on a daily basis. So on the expense screen, when you enter in information into the date box, Easy As remembers the last date of the entry you previously entered. So what happens is this. If you double click on this box, it will present to you the date you entered the last entry in, and you see here that was the last date here. It does that for this reason. You might be an individual that sorts out all your entries at the end of the month into date order before you enter your expenses. And you might come along and go, I've got 5 expense items on the same day. Rather than entering the date each time or selecting the date from here, you can easily just double click on the box and it will give you, as I said, the last date. This is coming up because I haven't finished that transaction. I can double click on that and it saves you entering the date and you can move on. Now, what was that box that came up a minute ago? If you actually enter a wrong entry, something's not supposed to be in a particular box, such as the date box, for example, you're going to get this error message come up to tell you, hang on, you're in a date box. Why have you entered text? Something's not right. You've got an error here. Close this. It's just telling you, go back and correct it. There's something not happening here. I can't go any further to you. Correct whatever the problem is. It's as simple as that. That's what that help screen was. In Easy As, you will get numerous little pop-ups like that come up just to say, hang on, something's wrong. Go back and have a look. Another unique trick that this date column can perform is, let's say you are an individual that enters your information once a fortnight. So you collect all your expenses. You can enter all your fuel expenses at one time. So you might go through all your expenses quickly and sort them out and go, okay, these are my fuel expenses in one big pile. What this date column allows you to do is to quicken things up. So you know you've got 10 expenses or 10 receipts for fuel. So rather than entering your date, going here, selecting the method you paid, going here, selecting fuel, entering the date, and so forth, you're doing that each and every receipt, 10 receipts. Easy As can quicken that up for you. If you look down the bottom here, we see a number 3 and we have an off written next to it. That means 3 columns. 1, 2, 3. The first 3 columns is turned off. If I click on this, it's now changed to on. That's going to be auto-remembered. So if you exit the screen, come back in at any time, that will remain on until you turn it off again. Now, what that means is this. I can double-click on the date column now, and let's see what happens. The pop-up box come up. Because the pop-up box, the sales tax pop-up box comes up normally because I've got it switched on. I've talked about that in a previous video. But you see what it did? It entered a new entry here according to the last entry we entered. So because I have a whole pile of fuel receipts, and I always pay my fuel receipts using one method called cash, I can just double click on this. It adds these 3 columns for me, and I can quickly enter in the cost of the expense. And it's done that for me. Naturally, if the item was on a different date, then that date column is going to be incorrect. Because you might not have purchased fuel receipts, everything on one date, and that's obvious. So, whilst it can quicken it up, you then have to go back and change your date. But I find that that little nuisance issue is relatively minor when you take into consideration that the rest of the information is quick. So I can just jump back to the date column now and enter in the date that I purchased that on, and I can move to the next one. I can double click that. Enter in $30. Enter my date, change it again if I wanted to. And off it goes. So that unique little feature's there. That was a request that we had at one time from a few individuals requested similar sort of feature. So they added it in. Now you don't have to use that if you don't want to. You can just keep it switched off. If that is of no importance to you, just switch it off. Like everything in Easy As, there's a lot of features that you can just switch off if you don't want to use them. They're not for you. Don't use them. So that's what that little off and on thing is down the bottom here. You might have tried to realize what that was about. Right, we have down the bottom here, we have a sort. This can sort your information here by sales tax order. You can sort it by category order. But as I explained earlier, you can also do that by just clicking up on these headings. But that's available down there. You can use the sort button if you don't click the headings. Let's have a quick look at these particular icons down the bottom here of the expense screen. Project group, I covered that in, I think, the first expense video. Right, I'm just quickly going to jump to another video because I think I've run out of time. I'm not quite sure. I didn't actually time this video.